Welcome to my presentation of the OTELA practice activities. We all help our ELL students prepare for state tests, and luckily the Ohio Department of Education is really good about providing release tests for the OAA and OGT. In fact, the free materials provided by ODE are very useful. That's why when the OTELA replaced the ELDA in 2006, I thought that ODE would start releasing OTELA test items that I could use to help my ELL students, just as they had done with the OAA and OGT. Now, ODE still hasn't provided any released OTELA test, but as I waited, I noticed that some of my more advanced ELL students were having no trouble reading at grade level or even passing the OAA, but they would get stuck on the OTELA. Now, I knew that they had the English language skills to pass, but what was missing, in my opinion, was the direct instruction in preparation for the OTELA. So I started making a few practice tests aligned with the Ohio English Language Proficiency Standards and Benchmarks. First, I started with listening because I saw a lot of my students receive low scores on the listening section of the OTELA, not because they lacked the listening skills, but because the only time they actually did any sort of listening test was when they took the OTELA. So of course there was room for improvement, and after a few practice tests, that's what I saw. Improvement, and a lot of it. When it came time for the OTELA, my students no longer looked confused or anxious. Instead, they looked really confident as they flipped through the pages and concentrated on the recordings. As their confidence went up, I saw their scores more accurately reflect their abilities. With this success, I made a few more listening practice tests, and eventually, I added the domain of speaking. As with listening, I knew my students could speak well in English, but again, the only time their speaking skills were tested was when they did the OTELA. And as a teacher, it was frustrating to see them perform below their abilities because they weren't used to the format of the speaking test. They would get confused about when to speak, not concentrate on what was being asked, or simply not be able to answer the questions fast enough. So as we practiced, I saw great results. The students became more confident, their scores went up, and another positive outcome was I saw my instruction become more effective and focused. I started asking more valuable questions and giving better, more constructive feedback. This year was the first year I used the OTELA practice activities for all of my 5th graders. I used the practice tests for each standard and benchmark for listening, speaking, and writing. I'm still developing the reading assessments. Now, there are a few variables which you can see at the end, but the initial data is all positive. From 3rd to 4th grade, the current group of 5th grade students increased their OTELA composite score by an average of only 0.7 of a point without OTELA practice. Whereas with OTELA practice, the same group of 14 students increased their average composite scores from 4th to 5th grade by almost 2 points. Now, the best part of this for me is finally seeing my students perform to their potential and seeing an increased number of my more advanced students exiting the program. You know the ones I'm talking about that ask you every year, why am I in ELL? Or their parents call and say, why are they still in ELL? They were born in the United States. What's going on? These are the students who are exiting now. These are the students who are reading at grade level and passing the OAA, but before the OTELA practice activities, they were stuck on the OTELA test. This data is very encouraging, but as you all know, each of our students is unique and there are always variables, such as the influence of instruction delivered by the classroom intervention, ELL teachers and tutors, and the service model that's being implemented, whether it's inclusion, pull-out, sheltered instruction, and the educational background of the students, if they have limited formal schooling or if they're literate in their first language. However, based on all of the evidence I've witnessed, I'm extremely confident that regardless of the instructional setting, the OTELA practice activities really help my students not only improve their OTELA scores, but also their overall English language skills, not to mention my instruction. And these assessments are short and easy to implement. The listening and writing tests can be done in about 10 to 15 minutes in a group setting, and the speaking test can be done in only about 5 minutes, depending on the student. And as you can see from these results, a little practice makes a huge difference. If you have any questions after seeing this presentation, please call or email and we'll be happy to answer them. Thank you.